the earth from the earliest periods. Now, Matt Brown says all Mackey admitted was that it's not an original concept. And then he virtually ignores everything else Mackey says for pages on end. That's not quality research into Freemasonry. Among the Israelites, the girdle formed a part of the investiture of the priesthood. In the mysteries of Mithras in Persia, the candidate was invested with a white apron. In the initiations practiced in Hindustan, the ceremony of investiture was preserved. The ceremony, but a sash was called a sacred zenar. It was substituted for the apron. Then he mentions the Jewish sect of the Essenes were clothed in white aprons and clothing. He goes through the Japanese rites of investiture. He mentions the Scandinavian rites of investiture. And he says, in the Scandinavian rites, the military genius of the people caused them to substitute a white shield, but its presentation was accompanied by an emblematic instruction not unlike that which is connected to Masonry. So while the idea is not original, as Matt Brown said, it absolutely is ancient. And that's the philosophy in Freemasonry. Irregardless of what Matt Brown wants to pretend, that's the way a Freemason sees this apron. He says, the apron, according to Dr. Oliver, someone that Matt ignores, appears to have been in ancient times an honorary badge of distinction, just like it was in the Jewish period. He says, though the principal honor of the apron may consist in its reference to innocence or conduct and purity of heart, yet it certainly appears through all ages to have been a most exalted badge of distinction. And that is precisely the Masonic usage, coming through the usage and philosophy from antiquity. Matt Brown ignores all this. You shouldn't. Matt Brown cannot possibly have the last word on Freemasonry. For one thing, he refuses to join us. So he's not interested in the Brotherhood at all. So everything he says is going to be minimized. I found that in his book on Mormons and Masons, which I'm going to review and write articles on as well. The color should be unspotted white, of course, because this color has, in all ages and countries, been esteemed as an emblem of innocence and purity. It was in reference to the vestiture in the Jewish priesthood that it was directed to be white. The Masons copy the ancient Jewish priesthood in that symbolism. No, it's not original. That's not a liability, though. That is a proper use philosophically, religiously, and in the fraternal nature of things. The color white was used by the Druids as their highest order was conferred on them. The candidates were dressed in white because they had gone through the mysteries, and it shows that they have been forgiven of their sins, they have repented of their sins, and they are pure and spotless before God. And therefore the white apron is a badge of that. That is precisely how Masonry uses it in its innocence and purity. The pure, spotless white apron. So anyway, it goes on and on and on. He denotes the reason why it should be lambskin, because of course the lamb was the sacrificial animal in antiquity, so the symbolism is appropriate. The lamb has always been considered an appropriate emblem of innocence. And Coyle's information has some ideas on this as well that's interesting. In Coyle's Masonic Encyclopedia by Henry Wilson Coyle, this was published in 1961, he says on page 63, the modern Freemason's apron has become a white lambskin apron which adds two specific qualities. White is undoubtedly a normal ritualistic development to represent purity, and the lambskin is dictated by the ancient burnt offerings of lambs. These we are led to investigate similar symbols of antiquity and learn that an apron was a kind of investiture which was common to solemn ceremonies everywhere. It resembled the girdle of the Israelite priest, the white apron of Mithras in Persia, the sash or zenner in India, the white robe of the Essenes, and similar symbols of the Ethiopians and the Egyptians. So no, it's not original, but it is ancient. And that's what you won't find in Matt Brown's analysis. He gives it the least possible meaning. And it makes sense because he's not a Mason, but it has much more meaning than Matt Brown has indicated to a Freemason like myself. Albert Mackey's 1930 book, Masonry Defined, the Revised Enlarged Edition, on page 232 says that in the ancient craft masonry, the lamb is the symbol of innocence. Thus, in the ritual of the first degree, it has been esteemed as such. Hence, it is required that the mason's apron should be made of lambskin. And why? Because in the high degrees and in the degrees of chivalry, as in Christian iconography, the lamb is a symbol of Jesus Christ. He says that right on page 232. The introduction of this Christian symbolism of the lamb comes from the expression of St. John the Baptist, who explained, on seeing Jesus, "Behold the Lamb of God," which undoubtedly was derived by earlier prophetic writers who compare the Messiah suffering on the cross to a lamb under the knife of a butcher. Now that's the meaning of the lambskin apron to Christian Masons. It certainly is a meaning I can understand and appreciate and enjoy and reverence. You didn't get that from Matt Brown though, did you?